You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 19, Episode 11. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we're going to focus on some tips and strategies to improve your trade show booth staff. Lately, I've been having a lot of conversations around booth staffing. Exhibit managers tell me they're frustrated about how their team behaves in the booth, or whether they even show up at the appropriate time. Attendees are annoyed that staffers pounce on them or shove materials at them as they pass by the booth. Now, these aren't new challenges by any means. Bad booth staff may be an ongoing problem for many exhibit team leaders, even you, but it's not unsolvable. Over the years, I've worked with many exhibit teams to improve their booth staff behavior. I've also done a number of previous blog posts and podcast episodes with booth staffing tips. So for this episode, we're diving into the Trade Show Insights archives for some booth staff strategies. Way back in Season 1, I shared the story of what I call the poster children of bad booth behavior. Let's listen in.
Once upon a trade show, there was an empty 10 by 10 booth. About an hour after the show opened, two men appeared in the booth. They put up divider walls across the back and along both sides of the space, leaving the ugly backs of the side walls exposed to their neighbors, rising above the pipe and drape. Slowly, the booth staffers began to appear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They all stood and chatted with each other, occasionally stopping to demonstrate their rather loud product, especially during presentations on the nearby event stage. As the days went by, the staffers discovered ways to make the time pass. 2 of them played cell phone tag, calling each other and blowing a whistle into the phone from various locations around the show floor. After enjoying a dinner of chicken wings in the booth, they decided to play a game of Nerf football. Now, obviously, they needed the practice, since the football landed mostly in the other exhibitors' booths. Fortunately, there was a big game on TV that weekend, so they were able to watch it in the booth on their mini-screen TV. By the last day of the show, the staffers realized they were way behind on their goal of qualified leads. So they began to chase customers down the aisles, laughing, "Yes, I'm following you. Hey, do you want to help me win a steak dinner?" Believe it or not, this sad tale is not fiction. It's a true story of one company's exhibiting practices witnessed at one particular show. The exhibitors in this example made so many mistakes, it's hard to know where to begin. From the start, they got off on the wrong foot by arriving late to set up. When they finally did arrive, they made a horrible impression on their neighboring booths, as well as the attendees who were already walking the show floor. Sadly, this is not the only example of bad booth staff behavior out there. We've all seen them. They plunk down their 6-foot table across the front of their booth space, fill it with literature, then sit down in their chairs behind the table. 3 sins, at least, committed right there. It's amazing how many people spend all that money to buy a booth space, yet don't exert any effort into maximizing their investment. This scenario, sadly, is seen at far too many shows. Perhaps the reason is not a lack of interest, but rather a lack of knowledge.
Wow. Every time I hear that story, I just still have a hard time believing it. And I was the exhibitor next door who had to deal with all their shenanigans. It was beyond annoying, let me tell you. But the one positive to come out of that week was how I've been able to use that bad example to educate thousands of exhibitors over the years. So who should or shouldn't be staffing your booth? Sometimes you may not have a choice, but when you do, here are a few tips on what characteristics to look for in potential booth staffers from Season 8, Episode 12.
So what does make a good booth staffer? Well, they're approachable, outgoing, and people-oriented. They're professional. They're experienced at trade shows because there's no time for a learning curve. They're comfortable engaging people and able to qualify before selling. They're knowledgeable about the company and products. They need to be a good communicator with a clear, simple message, as well as a good listener. They're enthusiastic, but not overpowering. They have a good attitude. They're familiar with the competition, and they're polite to the lookers, yet they won't waste time with them. You definitely don't want to use trade shows as a reward for performance contests. Anyone who thinks trade shows are a vacation has certainly never worked one.
And not everyone is cut out for booth duty. Salespeople can be a challenge. I did an entire blog post on that topic, which I'll link to in the show notes. But so can company executives. Sometimes the best staffers aren't who you might expect. Here's a clip from Season 14, Episode 1 on who to consider instead. Well, how about the research and development or R&D team, because they have vast product knowledge and can answer in-depth questions about how your products work. As a bonus, they may also gain some valuable customer insights for future product enhancements. Consider customer service representatives because they've spent time in the trenches answering all kinds of customer questions and objections. They not only know how to answer those frequently asked questions, but also how to do it with empathy and finesse. But booth staff success doesn't stop at selecting the right people for your team. You've got to coach and train them as well. Here's some insights on that from Season 12, Episode 1.
No coach in his right mind would send a player into the big game who had never spent an hour on the practice field. In fact, true superstars and elite performers likely spend up to 10,000 hours honing their skills, at least according to a theory that Malcolm Gladwell proposed in his book, Outliers, The Story of Success. Practice isn't the thing you do once you're good, Gladwell said. It's the thing you do that makes you good. It takes time and focused effort to master any skill. Now, of course, I'm not saying that an exhibit staff needs to spend 10,000 hours preparing for a show, but neither should they be left to figure things out as they go either. Think about it. Athletes, musicians, and other high-level professionals hire coaches, private trainers, and other experts to get them past what they don't know or can't fix by themselves. They focus on the skills and techniques they need to make them more effective, and they also do rehearsals and dry runs to work the kinks out. In the same way, exhibit staff, especially novices, need someone to guide them through what they don't know or understand. Applying common sense theory, where it's assumed that everyone knows the basics of how to work a booth, well, that just doesn't work. And like the fan in the stands who thinks he or she knows everything and could play a better game, a booth staff that has merely been going to shows for years but was never trained properly in the first place isn't going to become champions either. In fact, they may be doing even more harm than good. So what do booth staff champs in training need to work on? Well, things like how to engage, qualify, and disengage attendees, understanding what makes a qualified lead and what doesn't, reviewing in-booth etiquette issues like no eating or talking on cell phones while on duty, and so much more.
For a more in-depth look at what exhibitor education is and why it matters, check out the Exhibitor Education Manifesto that I wrote a few years ago. You'll find a PDF copy you can download for free, online at exhibitmarketerscafe.com/manifesto. It only takes about 10 minutes to read. And if your exhibit team is looking for the coaching, training, and skills needed to be more effective in your booth, check out the variety of tools available in the Exhibit Marketers Cafe or contact me to schedule your customized training. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the Trade Show Insights podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.